Hello, well, welcome to the program Inside NILDS. I am Emmanuel Ohiomohai. Today on the program, we examine the symbiotic relationship between the Konrad-Adenauer Foundation and NILDS. I sat down with Dr. Vladimir Craig, who is the country director of the Konrad-Adenauer Foundation, CAS, and Dr. Jake Dan Azumi, who is from NILDS. We talked about this relationship and what it means to this country, especially the legislative structures in this country. Welcome to Inside NILDS.
Thank you.
Now, let me start with you, Dr. Craig. What in a nutshell is the mandate of the Konrad-Adenauer Foundation, especially in Nigeria?
Good afternoon. Konrad-Adenauer Foundation is a German foundation that is associated with the ruling party in Germany, the Christian Democratic Union, the party of our Chancellor Angela Merkel. However, we are also part of the German Development Corporation, and as such we receive our funding from the Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, the German ministry. We have set up about 100 offices around the world. One of them is here in Nigeria. And our mandate is to promote democratic governance, good governance, the rule of law, human rights, and of course, good relations between our host countries and the Federal Republic of Germany.
Thank you very much. You heard that. And, but before I come to you, I would still stay with you. How would you say that mandate has aligned with the objectives of NILDS and the mandate, basically?
I think that this partnership with NILDS works out very, very well. Our mandate is especially to promote democratic governance in Nigeria, so we have been working for many years with the National Assembly, also with the many state houses of assembly, to provide capacity to the members of the various parliaments. And NILDS is an institute that belongs to the National Assembly and has a very, very similar mandate. So when we joined into a partnership, we realized that we benefit from each other quite a lot.
Okay. Dr. Jake, looking at that partnership, how would you describe it so far in sharpening the skills of legislators and to meet the challenges of qualitative governance, and how well has the synergy paid off?
Like Dr. Craig said, it's been a very wonderful partnership, little over a year now. We decided to, because of the way our mandates align to each other, we decided that, okay, if we bring the expertise from both organizations, we probably achieve more mileage and have greater reach. So the nature of the partnership basically is that we are involved in mainly two types of activities. One is capacity building. And like you rightly said, we do for state houses of assembly and also for select committees in the National Assembly. And then we also provide technical support and technical input where that is needed, either by way of developing legislative materials or materials that can be used in the legislature. Through this partnership, we've been able to train several state houses of assembly. For the Institute, this has been a major plus because, one, it means that we're able to expand our scope. We're able to do much more than we could ordinarily do. It also means that we are able to pool our expertise. So we have resource persons from the Institute and resource persons from CAS working together on joint projects. And inevitably, that means that it's a mutually beneficial kind of experience for both of us. And then CAS goes an extra mile to support the Institute to build its own internal capacity. These are things that we've started, but which we hope to scale up in the coming year. So basically, it's been a very wonderful partnership, and it's been mutually reinforcing.
Mutually reinforcing. Now, he's talked about a lot of capacity building and trainings. As a representative of CAS, would you say that these trainings will make that needed impact so that the challenges we have across legislatures in the country will be tamed in the nearest future?
I think it's well known in Nigeria that the turnover after every election in the parliaments is very high. Some of our partner parliaments on state level, they lost more or less almost every single member that was in the former assembly, and they got replaced with completely new members of parliament who have no experience in parliamentary work. We can say to some extent the same about the National Assembly too. And what we have realized is that these new members of parliament, they truly need to scale up their capacities in order to understand what it means to be a lawmaker, to represent their people, and also and especially in terms of oversight. So these are the three areas we focus on with NILDS together, and especially the latter one will even play a more important role throughout the next year of our partnership, when we would like to train especially certain committees that relate to security in the National Assembly on oversight of the security sector.
Beyond trainings, are there other areas of focus you are trying to partner with NILDS to actualize some of the goals that or mandate that you have captured in this partnership? Are there other things that or activities that would take place to capture that mandate of even curbing some of the challenges beyond trainings?
Of course, it goes beyond trainings. It goes into consultancy as well of members of parliament. When certain areas need reforms, what we do is to provide members of parliaments in seminars and workshops together with NILDS, not only with the capacity to understand the issue, but also with formats that help them to reform or even to design laws. Yes, we do that.
Okay, now, Dr. J, can you take us through other partnership efforts and programs lined up by the Institute, especially with the reality of COVID-19 crisis and the modes of operation adopted to carry them out?
Yeah, so basically, we had initially planned a series of capacity building activities before the onset of COVID. Now, that, of course, changed everything, as we are very much aware, and we also had to modify our methodology to be able to do that. So where we had planned joint trainings, for instance, we now had to stagger them and take them basically one state at a time in line with COVID, the guidelines that is issued by the federal government and the World Health Organization. And also, that has reflected in almost every aspect of the activities that we're planning, whether it's capacity building or technical support and assistance. And I think it's very important that I make the point that, yeah, more to capacity building. The point that Craig just made about consultancy, developing useful materials that will be used by the legislature. And all that we're doing together with CAS is to promote good governance. And this means, like he rightly said, is because the legislature is the most underdeveloped of the three arms of government. It has high turnover rate, like he said, sometimes between 70 at the national to 90 or more at the state level. And then it's also one of those that, when it comes to public perception, it's not doing great either. Now, a lot of those issues can be handled, first of all, when lawmakers understand their mandate. And one of the things that CAS brings on board, I think, especially in this series of training, is for legislators to meet with each other and share experience. From our interaction this year, we noticed that some assemblies are a little bit ahead of others. And what CAS is doing with NILDS is to say, how do we harmonize some processes, structures, and systems so that the more advanced state assemblies can teach the younger assemblies and the younger ones can learn, and also how can they interface with the National Assembly. But you're quite right, there are some specific areas of interest. The issue of security that Craig just mentioned is of interest, to everybody here because of the rising cases of insecurity. We think that the legislature has a role to play in that. Good governance can only be possible where there is peace, and peace can only be possible when the security system is robust. And we think that we can support the legislature to reform that sector. And like Dr. Craig rightly said, what we plan to do by NILDS and CAS in the coming year, one of the activities lined up is how do we, one, strengthen the oversight of the sector by the parliament, but two, how can we reform some of the laws to make them more up-to-date and better able to respond to the current realities.
As our needs as legislators and as parliaments are dynamic, so would be the activities of NILDS. So we cannot afford to waste any time, but work as a council to give NILDS the kind of support that it requires, to continue to give us the capacity, development for the National Assembly, State House of Assembly, and the Nigerian public who will be stakeholders in what we do.
Peer review is very important, and we would love to hear some of the experiences, probably from CAS experience in other countries, and share them with us, some of the experiences in other countries where it concerns CAS activities and activities related to what you're doing in Nigeria.
Look, as I said, we have around 100 offices around the world, and in total 18 in sub-Saharan Africa. Many of them also in West Africa, for instance. We have an office in Accra in Ghana, in Dakar in Senegal. We have an office in Abidjan, or even in Bamako. And our offices focus on the conditions and the environment in the respective countries and react to the needs of parliaments and governments, and also to some extent to the needs of security agencies. What, for instance, our office in Abidjan, but also our office in Bamako does, is to provide capacity building seminars to various security agencies that are supposed to tackle terrorism, for instance, in the Sahel region. We do that also in Nigeria, for instance. We work very closely with a number of security agencies in the framework of a special project that is funded by the German Foreign Office on security sector reform in Nigeria. Our focal point is interagency collaboration and to induce more joint collaboration between the security agencies to tackle more efficiently the security challenges. It really depends on the country at the end, what the respective country representative considers as a good strategy and as a good design of a portfolio to react to the needs of the respective country.
So basically a needs assessment has to be done before you make that intervention.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. And in some of our offices, you put more emphasis on human rights, for instance, or more emphasis on good governance. What we all have definitely in common is to promote democratic governance, meaning that in almost every country we work together with parliaments, with parliamentarians to support their work, to build up their capacities in order to contribute to democratic governance. From our point of view, parliaments and parliamentarians are the core of every democracy because they get elected and they're supposed to represent the people of their constituency in the parliament, and of course the interest of the people, meaning that it has to get reflected also in the laws, but also in the way they do oversight. So that's what we have in common. Apart from that, we focus on different areas, some even on economic development if the country requires.
Dr. Jake, where do you see this relationship evolving to in the nearest future, this relationship between NILDS and CAS?
You know the challenge when it comes to working with development partners, and each one, of course, comes with its sets of requirements. Lucky for us, because of the foundation of the Institute as a World Bank project, we already have an ethos and a working culture that allows us to be able to live up to the highest standards, both by way of internal capacity, financial prudence and probity and all whatnot. So, and the DG is very keen on that. The emphasis is that the institute should not operate like just any government agency. It has to have a distinctive mark because of the nature of what we do and the kind of organizations and groups that we interface with. So what started as a very tentative kind of arrangement has since developed very rapidly. And I think the DG is over a year now in the office. Dr. Craig also here started over a year ago. It's as though it was partnership made in heaven. And I think that going forward with what we are planning and the kind of things that we are planning for the 2021 work plan, I see that one, we're going to expand the scope of what we're doing. We'll consolidate first of all, and then expand, of course. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, it's been a partnership that has benefited the institute greatly. In the sense that when you engage in capacity development or the provision of technical services, inevitably you also grow in the process. You also learn a few things. So by and large, I see this partnership really, really developing and going places in the next couple years. And I really, really hope that, especially because of the sustainability aspect of it, that whatever we start with CAS, the management at the Institute and the National Assembly can carry that forward. So we're not just looking at one-off projects or a 2-3 year partnership. We want that whatever we do with CAS as partners somehow gets built into our systems and processes at the National Assembly and other government institutions and structures, and then are sustained in the coming years.
I'm going to ask you a two-pronged question, but let's start with the first one. Do you have a feedback mechanism when you do these trainings? And how does that feedback mechanism affect further trainings, maybe modules, preparation of modules for further trainings?
That's a beautiful question. One of the key aspects of this partnership is the M&E system. And we do this at 2 levels, actually. So we get feedback from the beneficiaries. So if we have a training, at the end of the training session, the beneficiaries have an opportunity to assess the program, to look at individual topics and resource persons and materials provided, and to give us feedback on what their take is on those kinds of things. Then within ourselves, that means as partners, in fact, the first point of control is what we do together as partners. We sit down together to design topics, to design themes and thematic areas to focus on. After each of the sets of training activities, what CAS does, and of course with NILDS, is to evaluate how those very sessions went. What areas can we strengthen? What areas can we leave as they are? What areas can we modify? So we do this at 2 levels. One, between ourselves as partners, and we do this in a very frank kind of a manner to say, this area needs to be fine-tuned or strengthened or even changed. And then we also get feedback from the beneficiaries. So you can see.
Part of this, you have lessons as organizers too.
Oh,
you have lessons. Can you share some of those lessons?
Yeah, if you take, like I said earlier, one of the key lessons you learn is that the participants are not all the same. If you take a state assembly from one geopolitical zone and compare to the other, inevitably we've discovered you have to look at the profile of the members of parliament. Remember, before they get elected, they come from diverse backgrounds. And not everybody comes from the same background, number one. Number two, how the methodology that you use to deliver the trainings is very important. It's not always, there are some cases where a classroom methodology is easy, where you just present a lecture. There are instances when we go even with prepared materials, and then you discover the materials are not sufficient to respond to the reality of the participants in the class, in which case you have to resort to maybe an interactive session, because the participants have some experience to share that will, first of all, strengthen our modules and inform how we interact with subsequent maybe stakeholders or participants. So we've had these kinds of situations where, based on an experience in one place, we've decided to change our approach or even to modify it when the training is going on. Only recently, the training we did with security-based committees in the National Assembly, we discovered we needed more time to get the members to talk to the issues, to harvest their input. And we noticed that that was the best strategy. That meant extra time. That meant flexibility in programming. It caused a lot of confusion for us. But at the end of the day, what we think we would achieve, and at some high level, Craig had to make some decisions to say, this has to change. Yeah, it's a bit painful and it's a bit last minute, but and also it's a lesson in anticipation. Going forward, we've said to ourselves, what can we anticipate? We may not be able to anticipate everything naturally, but we should be able to forecast and say, okay, looking at the program, is it fit for purpose? What can we anticipate changes and all whatnot? And then how do we respond to those kinds of changes? So yeah, it is a continuous learning process, even for us as planners and developers of some of these training activities.
Well, Dr. Jake has talked about some of the lessons they have learned, and I know some of these will be shared. But I'll ask the same question to you as CAS yourself. I know it's a partnership, but as CAS, what are some of those lessons you've learned as organizers as partners to organize this capacity building programs?
I think the most important lesson I've learned, and I think together with NILDS also experienced over the past 2 years, is that you have to accommodate the members of parliament. You have to listen to them and to their needs. So what, for instance, we introduced after 1 year being here in Nigeria was to invite all the speakers of our partner parliaments on state level to a workshop in order to discuss the content of capacity building seminars of this year, in order to understand what do they truly need, what do the members of their respective parliaments need. And by receiving their input, you start to integrate them also in your structure, in your preparations of the program, and they realize that there is a form of satisfaction in engaging with us and providing us with the respective input. I think this is the most important lesson when you work together with members of parliament, also with the National Assembly. If you provide capacity building seminars to various committees, you need first of all to explore with the chairman, the deputy chairman, with various members of this committee what actually is the standing of knowledge. What are, for instance, legislative initiatives they have probably in mind or on the table in order to design a program that truly fits their needs and receives also a very good response from the members of parliament.
Thank you. One last question, Dr. Jake. You've done state, you've done National Assembly. We have some form of parliament in a local government level. Is NILDS thinking of going down to the grassroots of local government?
Yeah, that's a very good question. At an institute level, we have handled legislatures at all levels. So we've done National Assembly, state assemblies. We've done a few trainings for some local government. Not all councils are elected councils in Nigeria. I'm sure you're aware of that. But we have a whole training module designed for elected councils. We have done that in a few states, at least 3 or 4 that I'm aware of. Even FCT, one of the last batches we've done was for the FCT councils, who are elected councillors from the various parts of the FCT. We've also done some training for the regional parliament, that is the ECOWAS parliament. We have a long-standing relationship with them. We've been working on expanding the powers of the regional parliaments, what lessons can they learn from the European Parliament, what powers should they have and all whatnot. And then we've also done some things now for national parliaments in the sub-region and also in some parts of Africa. We've had some parliamentarians come from other African countries to visit the Institute and the National Assembly to exchange experience and share knowledge. So yeah, we are thinking of cascading it. In fact, certainly you know that local governance at the local level is far from where it should be. And a lot of us who engage in this kind of strengthening of institutions think that going forward, that is one place that will require serious attention. Hopefully, with financial autonomy for the state assemblies and state judiciary, we are looking forward to the autonomy of the local governments. Ultimately, is the closest of the government to the people. So hopefully, we also will engage. As more councils get elected, If capacity is a challenge at national and state level, you will imagine it will probably be worse at the local level. So certainly we already are doing that, but it's not on a very large scale.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vladimir Krek, who is the country rep of the Konrad-Adenauer Foundation, for coming to the program. Also, thank you very much, Dr. Jake Danazumi, who is the Special Assistant Technical Matters to the Director General of NILDS. Thank you for coming to the program. I'm sure you are no stranger again to the partnership of NILDS and CAS, the Konrad-Adenauer Foundation. Of course, this is for the benefit of legislative and democratic structures in this country. That's the program for today. Remember, if you want to know more about the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, visit our website and other social media platforms as displayed on your screen. I am Emmanuel Uhiomokai. Have a great evening.